The light on my submersible dies first. Not because the batteries fail, because the ocean swallows it. Outside the viewport, there's no dark. There's a presence, a pressure of nothingness. Then a pinprick glow appears and glides closer like a slow-moving star, a living spark carrying its own universe of light in a place where the sun has never reached. And that's the rule of the deep. The farther down you go, sunlit to twilight to midnight to abyss to trenches, the more life seems to drift away from what we call normal and towards something that feels alien. Not because it's random, because survival gets stricter with every meter. Scarcity becomes law, pressure becomes architecture, darkness becomes a weapon. This shouldn't work, but it does. And the deeper you go, the creepier it gets, because evolution has fewer options, and the ones that remain are extreme. Near the surface, the ocean still resembles the world my brain expects. Sunlight drives photosynthesis. Tiny plants, phytoplankton, turn light into food, and that food becomes everything else. Color exists. Shadows behave like shadows. Eyes can do the job they were built for. But even here, the deep is already tugging at the rules. A few hundred meters down, the blue begins to thin. Contrast softens. The last reds vanish first. Then oranges, then yellows. Light becomes information, who you can see you, and how quickly either one can disappear. NOAA's standard depth bands put the sunlit epipelagic zone above roughly 200 meters, where life still powers the surface food web. And below that line, the ocean starts rewriting bodies. At around 200 meters, I cross into the mesopelagic, often called the twilight zone, stretching down toward about 1,000 meters. This is where daylight becomes a rumor. There's still enough illumination to cast a faint eternal blue, but not enough for plants. The green engine shuts off. No forests of kelp, no fields of algae. The primary source of energy is what falls from above. The constant, slow snowfall of debris known as marine snow, a drifting mix of dead plankton, shed skin, tiny carcasses, fecal pellets, and mucus. It looks like nothing. Down here, it's everything. And because the light is weak and the food is thin, creatures in the twilight zone evolve in two directions at once, vanish or glow. Some turn transparent, organs suspended like faint stains in gelatin. In dim blue light, pigment is expensive. Color is a liability. If you can't reflect what isn't there, you can't be outlined. Others grow enormous eyes, black glassy domes, built to capture the last scattered photons. Hatchetfish, lanternfish, glass squid, bodies shaped like coins or blades, optimized for a world where a silhouette can get you killed. But the strangest strategy here is light used as camouflage. It's called counter-illumination. Animals produce light on their bellies to match the dim glow above them, erasing their shadow from predators below. The goal isn't to shine, it's to cancel. Think about that. In the twilight zone, animals don't just hide in darkness. They manufacture the exact amount of light needed to disappear. And then there's the great nightly upheaval, the migration that turns the ocean into a living elevator. As night falls on the surface, billions of animals rise from the twilight zone toward the upper waters to feed, then sink back down at dawn. This daily movement, diel vertical migration, creates a shifting layer dense enough to confuse sonar, historically appearing as a phantom seafloor. It's tightly linked to what researchers call the deep scattering layer, famously noticed with sonar and described as a false bottom. The biggest animal migration on Earth isn't wildebeest, it's a tide of invisible life, moving up and down every single day. And it's only the beginning. Past roughly 1,000 meters, the last usable sunlight is gone. This is the bathypelagic, often called the midnight zone, descending toward about 4,000 meters. Here, the ocean becomes a place without time. No dawn, no dusk, no seasons of light. The water hovers near freezing. Pressure climbs into the hundreds of atmospheres. Every breathless meter down compresses the world harder, tightening the rules of biology. So life does something astonishing. It replaces the sun. Bioluminescence becomes the dominant language of the deep, used for hunting, hiding, confusing, warning, and mating. In this zone, light is not decoration. It's survival technology. A lanternfish may flash to coordinate with its own kind. A squid may shimmer to startle a predator. A drifting siphonophore, an entire colony masquerading as one creature, can carry lines of glowing points like a living constellation, its tentacles trailing like invisible fishing lines until something touches them. And predators here look like nightmares because subtlety fails in the midnight zone. If food is rare, you can't afford to miss meals. So mouths become traps, teeth become needles, jaws become hinged doors. The anglerfish is the icon for a reason. In the midnight zone, the female's lure is a beacon, an active signal in a black world. But what's truly extreme is what the darkness does to reproduction. In several deep-sea anglerfish lineages, tiny males locate females across the void and physically fuse to them, becoming permanent attachments. In the deep, even finding a mate is a life or death problem, and evolution solves it in ways that feel more like horror than romance. Then there are the fish that don't just glow, they weaponize what others can't see. Some deep-sea dragonfish produce far red light, long wavelengths that most deep-sea animals are effectively blind to, while also possessing visual adaptations that let them detect it. That means a private searchlight in a world that assumes red doesn't exist. Imagine hunting with a flashlight that no one else can see. This shouldn't work, but it does. And as bioluminescence becomes widespread, a new arms race appears. How do you avoid reflecting someone else's light? One answer is to become the void. Researchers have documented multiple deep-sea fish species with ultra-black skin that reflects less than 0.5% of incident blue-green light, so black that even direct illumination barely reveals them. That's not dark, that's optical disappearance. In the midnight zone, creepy is often just efficiency made visible. Bigger teeth for fewer chances, stranger lights for rarer meetings, blacker skin for tighter stealth. And eventually, the water column ends, the bottom arrives. At around 4,000 meters and deeper, depending on location, the seafloor opens into the abyssal realm. Vast plains of sediment stretching across enormous portions of the planet. If the midnight zone is an endless night sky, the abyssal plain is a desert, cold, flat, quiet, and starving. Food down here is mostly what drifts down: marine snow, occasional carcasses, and the rare jackpot, a body large enough to change the ecosystem around it. A whale fall is exactly that. When a whale dies and sinks, it can deliver a massive pulse of energy to the deep sea floor, feeding scavengers first, then smaller specialists for months to years, even longer depending on conditions. Among the most striking specialists are osedacs, bone-eating worms that colonize whale bones and extract nutrients from within. It's an oasis built from death, and it draws creatures that look like they were designed for a world with no mercy. Giant isopods, armored crustaceans that resemble oversized pillbugs, move slowly across the mud, built to endure long gaps between meals. Amphipods gather like a swarm when food appears, then vanish again into emptiness. And in the abyss, you start to see one of evolution's most unsettling patterns: deep-sea gigantism. Animals larger than their shallow water relatives, showing up across multiple groups, with proposed explanations tied to cold, scarcity, predation patterns, and the economics of survival in the deep. Down here, life is slow. Growth can take years. reproduction can be rare. Everything is built around stretching energy as far as it can go. Even the vampire squid, armed with a name that implies predation, reveals a different truth when you look closely. Researchers observed and analysed its feeding and found it primarily consumes marine snow and detritus, collecting it with long filaments in the oxygen-poor depths. It isn't a demon hunter, it's a careful, drifting collector, built to live where others would suffocate. That's one of the deep sea's most consistent tricks. The monster is often just a specialist, a body shaped by strict physics and brutal scarcity. And then, beneath even the abyss, the earth splits open. The trenches begin. Below roughly 6,000 meters lies the Hadal Zone, named after the underworld, reaching down into deep ocean trenches and approaching nearly 11,000 meters at the deepest points. Here, pressure becomes a governing force. At these depths, the ocean doesn't just press on you, it tries to reorganize you. Proteins want to unfold, membranes want to stiffen, chemical reactions want to slow. Life must be engineered at the molecular level to keep functioning. And yet, there are fish. The Hadal snailfishes are among the deepest living vertebrates known, inhabiting trench environments at depths of roughly 6,000 to 8,000 meters. They look delicate, gelatinous, pale, thin-skinned, but that softness is part of the solution. In extreme pressure, rigid structures can be liabilities. Flexibility matters. Chemistry matters. The trench isn't a place where you can muscle through. It's a place where your cells must stay stable in a world trying to crush them. And around these fish, the trench floor can be alive with scavengers, especially amphipods, swarming toward any food that tumbles into the underworld. Which is why one of the most haunting truths about the Hadal Zone isn't biological, it's human. In a 2019 study examining amphipods from multiple trenches around the Pacific Rim, researchers found man-made microfibers and fragments, including microplastics, in their hindguts, at depths spanning roughly 7,000 to 10,890 meters. So even here, far below storms, ships, and sunlight, the deep is not separate from us. The alien world is connected to our world by threads we never meant to weave. And that changes the feeling of the trenches, because suddenly, the deepest ocean isn't just a frontier, it's a mirror in the eyes. But the deeper I go, the clearer it becomes. They belong more perfectly than anything at the surface. In the twilight zone, big eyes and transparency solve the problem of fading light. In the midnight zone, bioluminescence becomes a toolset: lure, signal, disguise. And when everyone glows, ultra-black skin becomes the countermeasure: absorb the light, erase the body. In the abyss, slow metabolisms and scavenging lifestyles solve scarcity, and whale falls become temporary cities built on a single sinking body, with specialists like Osedax turning bone into food. In the trenches, life solves pressure with chemistry, with softness, with molecular defenses. And then we discover our plastic has arrived before we truly have. Nothing here is a horror trope by accident. Every bizarre feature is a logical endpoint of survival under constraints. The deep sea doesn't create monsters, it creates solutions. And when those solutions are shaped by darkness, pressure, and hunger, they just happen to look like something out of a nightmare. There's a reason the deep sea still feels like science fiction. Because in many ways, it is Earth's largest unexplored reality. There's a reason the deep sea still feels like science fiction. Because in many ways, it is Earth's largest unexplored reality. NOAA notes that explorers have seen less than 0.001% of the deep ocean seafloor, and that the deep ocean makes up the vast majority of ocean space. And even while mapping efforts are accelerating, a large portion of the seafloor still isn't mapped to modern standards. So when we talk about the deep, we're not talking about a completed chapter. We're talking about a living unknown, a place where biology has been running experiments for tens of millions of years, without light, without warmth, without abundance, yet still producing complexity, beauty, and terrifying elegance. And that's why these creepy creatures matter. Because they show us what life becomes when it's pushed far beyond comfort. They reveal the hidden limits of evolution, and sometimes they reveal that the limits are farther away than we thought. In their life and teeth and softness and blackness, they carry a message from the bottom of the world. Life doesn't need a familiar world to thrive. It needs rules and time. And the deeper you go, the rules get harsher, so the solutions get stranger. Why do deep-sea creatures get creepier the deeper you go? Because the deep sea doesn't reward the normal. It rewards what works, no matter how unreal it looks. If you made it all the way down here with me, thank you for watching, and for being curious about a world most humans will never see with their own eyes. If this film gave you that mix of awe and unease the deep sea does so well, give it a like and tell me in the comments which creature you think is the most impossible. And if you want more ocean stories told like this, cinematic, research-driven, and focused on what the planet is hiding, subscribe and join me on the next dive. When you're ready, watch my other ocean film next. It's waiting right there.